And they had some tragic news for me that he had just been killed the day before. So, yeah, that's the story with him. It was like, always wanted to see him and be with him, but I couldn't because the jail thing made the distance. When I finally hoped I could as a grown man, he was taken away.
Hello, my name is Wing, and welcome to A Work in Purpose. Do you see people who are living their purpose and wondering how did they get there? Are you wondering what is your purpose too? Me too. That's why I am inviting you to join me on this journey. A Work in Purpose is our podcast for igniting and reaching our purpose together. Each week, I will be sharing a podcast episode of me interviewing people from all walks of life who are working towards some kind of purpose, whether it is with their career, volunteering, creativity, spiritual practices, or just how they approach everyday life. We'll dive deep into their stories to uncover what obstacles they had to overcome to get to where they are today. By hearing their stories, I hope you will learn from their journey and be inspired yourself so you too can become a work in purpose. And be sure to subscribe, join our Facebook group, and follow us on Instagram for your doses of inspirations. Our guest this episode is Nasir Allah, or just Nas as he is called. Nas is the owner of Supreme Blend Barber Shop in Oakland, California. Growing up in East Oakland during the drug epidemic in the 80s, gangs, violence, and death were a part of Nas's everyday reality. His dad was on the top of the chain of the gang life until he too tragically succumbed to his harsh reality. As a young adult, Nas himself also became heavily active in the street lifestyle, tagging buildings with graffitis, selling illicit items, and getting into fights and into jails. Yet somehow today, he owns his own successful barbershop. Listen to this episode to hear Nas's inspiring story of how he went from being a young adult causing trouble to be the role model troubled young adults now go to for help. How his passion and talent for graffiti art led to a life-changing opportunity as an art teacher in one of Oakland's most notorious neighborhoods, and how his life experience growing up in such turbulent circumstances fuels his life purpose today. Hey Nas, welcome to A Working Purpose podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, Wing, I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So the purpose of this podcast is to help inspire others to find their purpose. So I was wondering, where would you say you are at on your journey towards your purpose? Have you discovered it? Have you reached it? Are you living it? What would you say?
I'm still living the purpose, man. I'm still finding it. I'm still in it. You know, me owning my own business is a great step to, some of the things that we call financial freedoms and financial, being financially not tied to things and having your own time. But it's so much more to life than that. So I'm still searching. It's still a lot. At 50, it's still a lot in me.
hmm
Yeah.
And what sort of business do you run?
Barbershop.
Mm,
I'm the owner and a barber, so I own a barbershop named Supreme Blends.
nice. And you were telling me that you had this other purpose where you were trying to help the teenagers from your the neighborhood you were growing up in, East Oakland. Can you tell us more
Definitely.
about that?
Yeah, I'm an East Oakland kid, 63rd MacArthur, right around the corner from this humongous cemetery, 63rd Mac. And it's crazy over there. A couple of years back, about 6 years back, I was a school teacher. I taught art, after school teacher. I taught art, and one of my purposes then is always to help, to help the children, teach the children. But when I was in a barber back then, I seen that maybe that I wanted that to be a job of mine, or I wanted more hands on with that. So I was helping the children much more back then with art. Give them opportunity to express. Art is a real thing that you just relieve yourself. So yeah, I was trying to help kids a lot more back then with my donation to art.
Mm. What kind of art were you teaching?
Oh, I'm an old graffiti artist as well. So it was visual art and graphic graffiti art.
So I know that you grew up in East Oakland and you had
Yeah.
quite a interesting story about that. Um, but before we dive into that, can you share with us some of the parallels you might be seeing today, and then we can talk more about how that is related to how you grew up in East Oakland.
So the parallels.
Paint us a picture, if you may.
Yeah. Growing up in Oakland, it's vastly different than what it is now. Vastly. Born in 1970. So, at the end of the year on top of it. So I've seen the whole, like growing up in 1970 to 1980, that's a real big period of time that you start taking in things. My surroundings were totally different. When I came home from the hospital, we lived on 61st and East Line. And that's like what they call deep, the bottom of Oakland. And it's this area where it's called the Flats, basically. And just, the craziest things. The neighborhood for blacks and blacks, it was only like a black neighborhood at the time. And so that was the whole surroundings. And back in the 70s, man, it wasn't like the 80s yet. It was, you had the perils that go on in the inner city and stuff, but it wasn't like the kids, we weren't involved. And again, I was only, from 1 all the way to 9 at that point. It was crazy, but it was fun in the 70s. And then it was poverty, what I mean? Nobody around us was rich. My mom and it was doing some of the best that I've known because I had two working parents, my mother and my stepdad. My stepdad was a barber, so I'll get to that at one point. But since they had two incomes, they always had a little bit more security, better security blanket than some of my friends around us back in those days. And it was loving. Oakland's always been a loving place, but it was just more um, gritty, a lot less money, a lot less money out here in Oakland, and but much realer too for me, for where I grew up, and the
Mhm.
people that I grew up with, and yeah, that's how I seen some of the 70s. The 80s was like quite different. By the time 81, 82 came in, that's when Oakland was on its peril, man. That's like crack cocaine came in. Some of the gang activity. We never had like real gangs. We had like these blocks and blocks and blocks, which are basically gangs. And that's when I was really became active. And that was like the early 80s, like 82, 83. And that's when really Oakland got its bad boy repertoire, this bad boy name for itself because of the crack, because of those gangs that was in the flats and things of that nature. It was crazy then. Yeah. That's when I started picking up, my love for barbering way back then in 83, 84. Actually, like it was always something else to do other than just concentrate on what was going on, trying to, be some of the rudest and baddest boys out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say active, did you mean just with barbershop stuff or?
Well, that's when I got active with barber stuff as well as that's when I got active with barbering stuff. Because my stepdad being a barber in his earlier age, we always had the tools. I
Mhm.
always had the tools around me. Like, he was cutting people on the weekends, cutting my friends, my uncles, and things of that nature. So I seen him. I used to watch him, how he got down, how he would change his guards and things of that nature. How he always had these cool stories. I thought it was the coolest thing. And so I used to see that. And then, as you grow as a young boy, your hair start growing, facial hair and stuff. So I started doing my own hair, borrowing his clippers, going up, borrowing them, asking for them, sneaking them, doing my own face and learning the tool then, because I started growing a beard way back then. So I had the tools in my hand. I was learning back then. And yeah, I got to thank him for it. That was dope.
Mm.
So we'll get to like the late 80s, man. Like the late 80s, it was the craziest times of Oakland. I was just graduated in 88. being a man, a couple months later in '88, this first time moving out of the house. So I was 18, wanting to grow up quick, and
Mhm.
obviously, wanted to be out there and work and have fun and meet people and live the life that was going on and stuff like that. So that led me to leave the house, and so left the house, moved in with some friends and stuff. Into the early '90s is another great time. It was let me see what was good about the early '90s. It was fun again, adulthood. I was working at the supermarket called Save Lucky's. Actually, I was working at Lucky's at the time, and Oakland was still, it was at 20 years old. Hip hop was my whole thing. Hip hop, the music, some more. I was kind of getting out of graffiti at that time. By 20, I was more out of it and putting it more in books and on paper, like redefining my art. You know what I mean? At first, it was all about the letters and things of that nature. But by the time I was 20, it wasn't cool to be writing on walls and stuff and running from cops and stuff like that. So I kind of like transitioned more to books and things of that nature. Getting better and getting older with the skill, growing older with the skill.
At what point did you decide to open up your own barbershop?
Wow, that was crazy. All the years of I just decided to open up my own barbershop. Honestly, about 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I decided I was like, I'm gonna open up my own shop. And what led me to that was just the, trials and tribulations of growing up here in Oakland, not having a serious education, like, higher education as far as college, working and, just being out there, being active, knowing this person, knowing that person, making people meet, things of that nature, just moving things. It wasn't working all the way. I was a car salesman at one point. I did that. I did the grocery thing for 10 years. And with that comes a certain, you can only make a certain amount of money. So your lifestyle's stuck, stagnant. So from there, I went to selling cars. Being grown up in Oakland, living in Oakland and all that, you figure, man, I had this one idea when I started cars. I wanted to be able to like work on my own terms when I was selling cars. I was like, man, I don't have to sit behind a desk. I don't have to, like write much. I can just meet somebody, greet them, get them in a vehicle. I felt like an entrepreneur then when I was selling cars, but I very much wasn't. I was working at a couple of different dealerships. But back then, at the transition of wanting to do my own, wanting to push, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But back then, I think I was working towards something of being self-sufficient. 7 years ago is when I decided I had to become a barber. That's when I went to school for barbering because I always had the tools back in the '90s. I started cutting friends' hair. I was always cutting my own hair. And so back 7 years ago, I had to do something with that skill.
So growing up, your stepdad taught you how to barber, to cut hair.
Yeah, yeah.
And and can you tell us more about your biological dad? What,
My biological dad, yeah, pops. He was a really good guy. He majority of my life he was in the state penitentiary.
mhm,
So I was raised by my mom and my stepdad. Met my stepdad when I was 3.
mm.
And about 3 is when my dad, or about 2 was when my dad started going in and out of state penitentiary, more in than out. He would do stretches like 6 years at a time. I think a little stretch for him, hey man, a little stretch for him would be like 3 years. But he was, active in the life, And so yeah, pops. I remember I think my first time seeing him out of penitentiary, I was about 6.
Mm.
No, 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 no. No, no, no. The first time I remember seeing him out, I think I was I was 6. I was 6. And he had picked me up. Now my dad was this ultra super drug dealer dude, like, talking about, the kind of guy you talk about thousands of dollars a night and all that. He was doing that way back in the '80s and stuff. So, that was his lifestyle. That's why, when he come out, he tried to like make up. Oh, here's a gift. Or let me try to get this money to get these things. And just never could. First time I remember kicking with him outside visiting him in the state penitentiary when I was about 6. And he came over with this really nice Cadillac and came pick me up and got cleaned up and we went out and he just showed me kind of like what he was about. Went to some of his friends' house and he would talk that slick slang and yeah, look at my drop cop or look at my Cadillac, it's cocaine weight. I'm about to blow out the top, meaning he's about to, put a sunroof in it and all these cool things. And, it was that life. And he would go back in and wouldn't see him again for a long time. And always wanting that confirmation from it. Like, look, you're doing right, but I couldn't get it for whatever reason. And then I remember the last time he came out the state penitentiary, I picked him up at this little bar over in Emeryville and kicked it with him. The night was at my auntie's house, so we kicked it and everything. And I had to go to work. And I was thinking to myself, man, I should really not go to work. I haven't seen Pops in years. Let me kick it with him. He was like, nah, we kick it tomorrow, going to work, go and do that good thing. So went to work. Make a long story short, went back over to my mom's house the next day the next day to kick it with him. He didn't show up. I was like, damn, that's odd. You know what I mean? You don't got a lot you don't have a lot on your schedule because you just got to the state penitentiary. Wonder what is he doing? So I just seen him that day. All right. So then did something next day. I went back to my mom's house and where I was supposed to meet him. Didn't see him. Oh, went back over there. And what I seen was my mother there, my auntie and my uncle there. And they had some tragic news for me that he had just been killed the day before. So yeah, that's the story with him. It was like, always wanted to see him and be with him, but I couldn't because the jail thing made the distance. When I finally hoped I could as a grown man, he was taken away.
Who killed him?
There is some talk about that. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
So at the time, your pops was making like thousands of dollars selling drugs.
Yeah.
And he was
and at his time it was heroin. At the time it was heroin back when he was doing his thing. Cause he had when you do it, you kind of play with it. You know what I mean? So that was his lifestyle.
Yeah. And he was like among like the top of the chain.
Yeah, he was at the peak of it at points of his career, like fighting with, or going at it heavily with these heavy drug dealers, well known. Felix Mitchell was one of them, like Oakland's true kingpin of the 70s and early 80s. He was warring with these guys. Like that was that life. That was his life.
I guess how kind of close were you to that sort of life? Did it affect your worldview? Did you see it in person with him?
Yeah. Just growing up where I grew up, you're gonna see it. Now, if it's for you to, idolize it and be like, wow, that's dope, so most people are, those guys got the fancy cars and all that, and the women seem to be, super attracted to them and stuff. So, you kind of gravitate to that as a young guy who didn't have pops growing up, but I did have a father figure in the house. But it was like, you're still looking for that, again, that pat on the back, like you're doing good, you're rock solid and all this. So you kind of like, whatever's going on around you, you kind of gravitate to it. You see it. So yeah, you're gonna see it. You're gonna play with it, more or less. The fighting, the gang activity that was out there that was easy to get into. It's the machoism. All the cats had it. So that was very easy to get into. Yeah.
So thinking back of yourself at the time, I guess with your friends, and you were saying how that sort of thing was kind of idolized. How did you kind of like move away from that? Maybe some of your friends at the time didn't.
Yeah, a lot of my friends didn't. Majority of them still haven't. You know what I mean? The break away, to get away and finally have something that a made a companion or something where you can like build something. What I noticed is majority of my homies, they still idolizing the wrong things. They're still doing the wrong things. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but it's about where I try to spend my time and my energy, where I'm focusing at, and where I'm allowing majority of my time and focus to go. I think that's what's separating people like myself, or people who's failing, people who's not. It was I think over time mostly. Time is what helped me break away from it. It wasn't a clean break away from being a young cat that was like in the streets, kicking it hard, active in it. When I say active, yeah, selling things, doing things, and all that. It wasn't just an easy process. It was a long process of just like growing up, taking the wrong steps, getting in trouble. That was some of it. Going to jail, fights that for no reason that could easily been evaded. You wake up, and your hands is all swole up, or your eyes all swollen. And this is for years. So it wasn't just it wasn't just one thing when I woke up in 20, 22, 25, 30. It's a process with life. And yeah, I seen it. I seen cats who do make it. I seen being in the car business, I seen some very successful people. That was a 10-year period of my life. And I think each part played a great step for a change. Working, keeping a job at Lucky's or at the supermarket, to getting tired of that, then wanting to go to the car business, getting tired of the car business, and then wanting to do something else. And each step was a growth. So I don't think it was a quick change at all.
Mm. Was there like a temptation that always kind of try to pull you back to that old world? Like maybe the ones who were still in that world?
Yeah, it was. Not as much since I'm 50. No, there's not as much temptation to be like, come kick it and, come. Nah, I see that the easy part now, like the better I do, is the better life is. So the more that I act right and do right, the better life will be. So that's the whole reward of it. It's not the reward of being out and kicking it and, God knows what I'm out, kicking it doing. But the best way right now for me at 50 is to obey by the rules, do it right, because the payoff is so much greater.
Let's go back to that time when you said you were active. You said that you landed in jail?
Wow. The most act so like majority it's so many stops in and out of jail. So it's not just one time in jail. And it's not like for jail for a long period of time. It's like being a person that was like, you get into a fight, you go to jail. You get a speeding ticket because you didn't pay other tickets, you go to jail. You get into something else, you go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
You get caught with something, you go to jail, but these are things that are not like where you stand and do real time. So it's just a lot of accumulated of messing up to where you can you sit back and you look at it like, damn, it's so much until you have to change. You know what I mean? You can't continue to do that. So those are crazier times. The things that I was more or less the things that I was doing to get in a lot of that was a lot of drinking. Drinking and stuff like that. Yeah. That was the biggest thing in a lot of the bad decisions.
So before your pops got killed, were you already sort of active in that space, or did his death
Very
kind
much
of like
so. Not very much so. No, very much so. Running with cats that before he was killed, this is before I was 21, had no children at the time. So I found myself running with my clique, like some cats that I went to school with and some cats around the neighborhood. And everybody thought they was, their own self, their own macho. So it was about 4 of us that I ran with heavily. And, we did everything from, the craziest shit, bro, from looking like a small little gang to, stealing cars, selling weed. This really, pushing the limit. Sometimes, like I'm in one time, or it just having a lot of fun too. This is when Oakland was young, so it was like it was almost like a stepping into manhood. Like this is what we do, and this is how we do it. This is a condition that you see it with your pops, your uncles, and all this stuff. So it's a condition that's around you. So you kind of want to idolize that. You want to be a part of it. You want to show how well you can master that. So it's more of a lifestyle of this is my crew, this is how we get down. We're gonna move like this, stuff like that. And every couple of weeks, you find yourself doing something is bad coming from it. If it's sometimes it's worse and sometimes it's not. You know what I mean? This is a whole life of just accumulating things like that will change you.
given how your dad was like among the top at the time, did that sort of influence you to kind of live up to his reputation?
A little bit, not as bad, not as bad. His was, he was known for killing people and stuff. That's why he would spend time in jail for
Mm-hmm.
shootings. But once you think, like, you can trick yourself to thinking that, oh yeah, I'm a part of him, so I must have the same type of energy or the same type of something. I think, and I think that could be a downfall for people. Even I think I was even victimized with that. Like, oh, my dad is hella tough. I seen all the pictures, I heard all the stories. I knew how he got down. I seen his cars when he'd be home. I knew he was about, getting money. And there's a certain amount of I think everybody wants to, have a little bit of money and success and things of that nature. I even know the way he was, getting it. So I kind of like, damn, Pops is tough. And with that, yeah, I think I felt victim to some of that as well,
Yeah.
knowing how my Pops was and, like not having to live up to anything, but kind of like wanting to in a way,
Hmm.
like, oh, I must have that. Nobody can touch me, or I want that. I wish I had that, Yeah. I think something that was going on with that.
So, as a kid, you would feel proud of his achievements, and
In a way, yeah, in a
right.
way. Yeah, in a way, because again, proud in a way. He, wow, he must be tough. But again, he spends a lot of his time in penitentiary,
Mm,
So yeah.
mm,
One fun part that I kind of left out is the art part of it. I think that I when one time we were talking
mhm,
and you like the aspect of the art. The graffiti, that was a good time. From the ages of about 12 to about 17, I was active, really active in the, doing that. And that's a culture upon itself. Figuring out a name, what I mean, in itself is a process. Like, again, it's about your ego. My first name in graffiti was Fanto because I see myself as this lurking, seen, unseen. You know what I mean? So those are some crazy fun years there too. And you meet these people, you come up in these little crews. My crew was called CAL, Colors Aerosol Life. At first, it was called it was KAL, Killers at Large. But
mhm,
we only thing we had was spray paint cans. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So then it moved to CALs, and that was CAL, and that was Colors Aerosol and Life. And the whole thing about fine tuning your art. First, it was about getting up on every building I could, from all the way from East Oakland to Lake Mary. You know what I mean? I mean, one night I left my cousin's house. He lived by the lake, and this is probably about 1 o'clock. I got to my house in East Oakland probably about 2 hours later, and about 80 to 100 tags later. And that was a good thing. That was a good part of Oakland back in the 80s. Until I put it down for going up on walls for the most part, and to start concentrating on more style
Mm.
instead of getting up.
What was like your proudest graffiti art that you guys did?
Oh man, well, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of proud. Some of my proudest moments. That one night, when I went all the way from Lake to East Oakland, putting on my tag, because that really got me a lot of clout. I guess what the people say now. But some of my favorite graffiti moments was when I was teaching at United for Success, a middle school out in East Oakland, and just watching these kids, giving them ideas of how to grow their styles, and watching their styles just like developing, some in days, some in weeks. Watching these cats like damn near come with just crayon abilities, and then they're leaving with marker. Now they're using rulers to get the lines even more fine-tuned and things of nature. So those are some of my more prouder, um and to watch the art they did, those are some of my more prouder moments, because some of those guys are really like up and known now. So yeah, that's some of my more proud graffiti moments, just the success of some of the cats that I've taught. Yeah.
You mentioned that you taught art for how long?
About 3.5 years.
Oh, cool. So the graffiti background actually helped led to that, right?
Yeah, yeah. The graffiti background is what exactly led to me being able to interview for teaching art. And also later just the fine tuning, the visual art just came from me fine tuning,
Mm-hmm.
looking at something and just really tuning in and seeing how I can get, better visually, make something visually better. But yeah, because of my background in graffiti, I got that job. That was crazy. Never knew that you could do that. Like that was crazy.
How old were the students, and where was the schooling?
The school was off of so it was off of high school. No, it's off of 35th. It's like in the middle between MacArthur and like Bancroft. It's a school. It's a well-known school. It's United for Success, and it's a 6 through 8. So it's a middle school,
Mm.
and that's when kids are at their worst. Like that's when you leave the house. That's when you leave the house. You can walk to school almost by yourself. Stop, hook up with your friends, get some sodas, and that's when cursing starts coming in with children more. Because they know there's nothing you can do. So yeah, those grades are crazy. And I think that part of the plan for me to come aboard was, skill based. Oh, you're a good artist. But some is like your actual stature may lend itself to keeping children in line while in the classroom. And I think that helped as well. That I think it did. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just went into the classroom and be like, "Hey, we're gonna learn about graffiti art," and they were like, "Oh, teach us." Yeah.
Yeah, some was, but some was like, nah, I don't want to learn about nothing. Stuff like that. So how do you win that kid over?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was some things was rough about that. But I normally did it. I normally won those kids over as well. Yeah. And that was a great 3 years. That was a great 3.5 years of me growing and learning who I was. I think truly barbering came directly after that, and probably because of that. I was already in my creative juices and all that. And yeah, and then my wife, my partner was always, she's always there like, man, do it. If you like it, do it. Go ahead, try. So at the point, I had the ability to go back to school. I had the ability to go to school and learn the craft of barbering.
How come you decided to go to the barber route instead of continuing teaching art?
Well, the thing about the teaching was I got tired of it. It was some creativeness in it, but I was doing more like I was being broke down by doing more of stopping kids from doing this, like disciplinary things. And I don't want to be a disciplinary teacher or a security guard of students, a babysitter of students, basically.
Hmm.
And so I started dying out. I started disconnecting. And as that was going on, it was always funded based because it was I forget it was like this I'll get back to the word. I forget a non-profit organization that was paying me. So everything was funded by basically how many students you had that was enrolled in your class, the route or the projection of where they wanted to take after schooling afterwards. So as time was going on, me not really like filling the job anymore because all I was doing was like babysitting and drawing some. I wasn't growing. The funding was lying dying on my behalf as well. So it was an easy transition. Like they couldn't keep me really. I didn't want to like transition to any other part of after school. And it was about time for me at that point to go do something else, which was barbering. To keep it going. I knew I didn't want to go work for any car business anymore. You know what I mean? And things of that nature. So it was time to go on and do something.
So I want to take a step back. We didn't really talk about your stepdad, and at the time when you were growing up, while your bio dad was out there doing his thing, your stepdad was influencing you in a different direction. Can you tell us more about growing up with him and your mom?
That was a beautiful thing, man. Well, yeah, well, pops is in life, boom. Stepdad is there from the age of like a little after 3, and up until like 7 years ago when he passed. He was a great man. He was into jazz. He was a sax player. Great barber. He taught me, showed me how to barber. He was a jazz lover. The best thing he ever showed me was getting up every single day and going to work. Every single day that man got up. He had his weekends off. Yeah, I think he had like a Saturday sometimes or in Sunday. But every day that man was up like 6 o'clock in the morning going to work. And those of that again, to be an entrepreneur, those were qualities that you have to have. First there, last to leave. And I seen him do it. I see my step pops, man, he was running somebody's business. He always wanted to run his own business. I seen him for eons run somebody's business by opening it up, doing the business and closing at the end of the day, but didn't really go out there and do it himself. But he showed me that you can literally make a living by doing it right, by doing it this way. Strong contrast compared to what my dad was trying to live.
So during those years when you were, being a 20-something-year-old, going out
Yeah.
there and
Yeah.
um, having fun, what was your
Yes.
stepdad's, how was he responding to all of that? And, what was his point of view?
It was disappointment. But they my parents really, when I was young, because before I got out there, they couldn't, after I left, they couldn't do nothing. But they kind of let you, because I was the youngest of three brothers and a sister. So I was the youngest of five children. So my older brothers, they was already beating at my parents with disbehaving, or
Mm.
misbehaving. I'm sorry, misbehaving. My oldest brother was in and out of jail. He's 8 years older than me. So he had beaten my parents up. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Not physically, just mentally, like, oh my God. Then my younger brother was a good guy, but he was kind of like a little lazy. And then I lost the brother right under him. I lost him 1 week after I lost my dad.
Mm.
So I turned 21. My dad was killed, and then I lost my brother, my step brother, but a real brother to me because he was in my life since I was 4. And so the next it was him. Then it's my sister, and then it's me. So they was literally tired by the time I was messing up or whatever. They was like, "Well, he'll learn." You know what I mean? We done taught him good stuff. He'll learn. So yeah, it was disappointment whenever I mess up, but it wasn't just like it was no sternness, like you're a mess up. It was just like, how did that feel? Pick yourself up.
Mm. Yeah, so you had to learn things on your own the hard way, huh? What was like the hardest lesson you've had to learn on your own? How did you learn it?
Um, Man, and this is a good one. The hardest lesson, man, that I had to learn was is a better word for it, but I'm gonna say it's self-control. It's the best, it's the best, it's the best lesson that, I've had to learn. Want to do something, but having to focus on doing something else to get an outcome or to be, to finish what I want to do. You know, it doesn't have to be destructive all the time. At this age, it shouldn't be. But even just focusing, my wife, my wife helped teach me about just getting up in the morning and straighten up the bed, even if I don't make it the best, firm, tight, tight, tight. Just getting up, making sure it looks good before I leave. That's my first thing I've completed in the morning. Now everything else, just complete everything else from there, or try to.
Mm. And how did you learn that?
My wife is the one who, kind of like installed that one in me.
Mm.
Yeah, she's a neat freak, but I think that was just something that beside her making sure that the house is, always tidy. It was just the completion. I think that's the lesson that I learned. That was a great lesson. Completing things and just being focused and being able to focus on something and not being, taken away, just my attention being taken away from something so easily. Those have been some great lessons that I've learned in life. And I want to say the greatest thing was my children. Those are the greatest things that's ever happened to me, the birth of my children. Yeah.
Oh,
But that, I couldn't leave this conversation without saying that.
yeah.
But yeah, great lessons with self-control.
And let's talk a bit more about your mom.
My
And
mom,
yeah. So
it's my mom.
so when you were growing up, she and your dad weren't together and she found your stepdad. And was she kind of like shielding you from your bio dad, or what was that like?
Yeah, she showed me, but not. She never would say anything bad about my pops because he was a good guy. But she showed me from the lifestyle. She even though I grew up in these crazy spots, 61st and East Line, somebody at some point is going to hear this, or you'll Google and be like, wow, that's right in the heart of it. But always lived in a home, instead of a apartment building. We always had our own space, so the world wasn't just right on top of us, affecting us. You know, when I moved to 63rd Mac, where I'm very proud of, around the whole area is now developed to be really nice. Gentrification is happening, but it's happening very slowly in Oakland. Things you see in Oakland is pretty much like it was. And that part of Oakland, is a part where I kind of lost train of thought. But again, it never was the best part, but it was where our actual house home was very nice. They had bought a home there, 3-bedroom home, and always kept my surroundings very nice, but the outside was, when you go outside off our block or whatever, it was the streets. So I think they shielded me by just showing me the right way and not making it so rat race for me.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of the friends that you grew up with are kind of still in that sort of, I guess you would say, rat race, right? Um,
Right.
so what made you able to get out of that?
It was constant, just pushing. You know, the person that I am inside, I think I'm a fighter. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna get knocked down. It's just when you get up or how you get up. Why are you gonna get up? Then do it. You may not want that fight again. Pick another thing that you can attack. So I think the inner side inside of me is just always to get up and do it. I don't think that I don't think it's like a special thing. It's someone's cats, man. That's just I don't know. I tell you the truth. Wing, I do not know why somebody is still doing the same thing 20 years later if it didn't prove to be fruitful. I don't know. I don't know. The biggest
Was it
thing was
something?
time.
Was there something that you had that they didn't have? Maybe some
Nope,
sort of.
it
No.
wasn't. That's the beautiful thing about it. It isn't. It wasn't. It's just the consistency of being like, all right, cool. I've been here. I've been good. I've been bad. Let me keep going. That's it. That's what anything. I've never known anybody not to make it if they kept pushing, if they kept trying. Everybody I've ever known to do anything, have anything, they kept trying at it. Some of the best graffiti writers that we came up together, some of the best ones here in Oakland. None of us was that dope, but now they're the kings. Some cats or mechanics. I know some, great mechanics, cars, like they just kept trying. Nothing stopped them. They just kept trying. And that's all it was. Some cats either didn't find something to keep trying or they just didn't keep trying. I think that's what separated it. That was separation, you know. And thinking about it, that's messed up. That's a sin. Almost. It's crazy.
Can you talk more about what you are doing to kind of help the younger ones in East Oakland now to, I guess, try harder?
The best thing I could teach is, like at this point, with the business being 2.5 years old, right? I don't have the same time as I used to be hands on like I was with children. But the best way I can show is by example. You
Mhm.
know, um, be what I am. Whatever I talk about, make sure that that's my armor. Be a good guy, stand up guy. Meet me. You know that the way I talk is I'm giving it to you raw, real. So that's the best way I can show by example now. Um, because I got other business ventures. Thinking about opening up a school, a barbering school, and things of that nature. So that's how I'm gonna give back. Is by giving jobs, by giving education. Those things are the ways I'm gonna give back instead of, being so hands on. Because I did that. Now it's got to be a better way for me to help these kids. Yeah, to
Yeah.
help people. It's not just only the kids. It's kids being, like a young person even in mind. I want to help them too.
So by helping these young people nowadays, would you say that gives you a sense of purpose?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think you find anytime like me helping kids, anytime anybody helps anybody, I think that gives you some self of purpose. There's a better word for it, achievement. You know, it's always going to be about the children, yeah, helping the children because that's the future. You know, but helping everybody as well. Like it's these kids. Yeah, what I've noticed about some of these kids, they're not afraid to be who they want to be. They're not afraid to go get what they want to get. And that's a beautiful thing. It's the older cats. It's some of these 30, 40-year-old kids, not kids, people that are stuck in old ways, not developing, I guess. I don't know. There's some of those we need to go reach back for too. Because the younger generation, man, they on fire, man. They doing it. They're out there changing, they're marching for what they want. I love that. I love how you just see so many different people, so many different races, faces, and everybody talking about they want equality, they want justice. That's the kids. You're always gonna have some that's not doing. But the majority of these kids that I see, man, they got their heads on right. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you did some hands-on work to kind of encourage the young ones to a different direction in the past. Can you tell us more about that?
Definitely. At the school, man, that was a great. I could say that was a great experiment.
Mm.
Because yeah, I was working, I was doing what I loved, I was helping kids, but it was some real work. Like that school, United for Success, it's in the heart of so it's like 35th. So Oakland's from First Avenue, First Ave, all the way to like 101st. In the middle would be 50th. So where I was teaching, that was the 30s. It's like damn near the heart of Oakland, but it's also known for like a lot of Latino gang stuff. That school is it's like they call it, that school is known for gladiator training for kids going to bigger gangs like Crips, the Norths, the Serenos, and the I don't know the gangs too well, but it's the North and the South, Serenos and Norteños. That school was like the school years before, or that time was known for like breeding them for that. You know what I mean? So I was dealing with some kids that was like coming from some really, really rough experiences, Wayne. Like that's what I should talk about. Like that was a good time. Those kids, man, like a lot of them was good, but some of those kids was like they grew up in the worst parts of Oakland with that red, that blue, and that they had another game that was big out there at the time called the Border Brothers. So you had the Norteños, the Sureños, and so many different groups in that. And the BBs, which was wearing black. Those kids, man, like the love that I showed them, it wasn't all me, but what I had to do at times, like if a kid, they had the ability to call me. Since we were teaching art, we was cool and stuff, and I would give them stories like I'm giving right now. It felt really a cut, like really close to me. Kid would call me 11 o'clock. Nas, I need to talk to you, man. My friend got shot. So those things, I feel good about those times. And those are some real times because that was 3 years of watching kids who's going from sixth, seventh, eighth. I taught each grade, 2 different grades. First year I was there, I taught six. Second year I was there, I taught eighth grade, and the last year I was I taught seventh grade. And I just seen the transition of these kids' lives, man. It was crazy. And a lot of times, like I said, every kid don't go through it hard like that, but where these kids was from, they was seeing it. Kids, their friends dying, their mother and pops, or pops dying, super alcoholism, and just like being there for them, talking to them, letting them express themselves through art. That was the biggest thing. Yeah, that was some good times. That was some good times right there, Wayne.
So then since then, you've decided to help out in other ways that you mentioned that you wanted to start like a barber school.
I do. That's something. So yeah, thank you. That's one of my plans that I was just talking about this morning. I think I told you, some of my first Zoom calls for business was just this morning, and that's a plan that every year is coming closer. It's coming closer. Me open up a school. Definitely a second barbershop is coming, but a school. When I'm a little older and I'm not ready to stand up all day, I think I'll have a school. And yes, majority of kids that start school is 17, 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And that's how I'm definitely going to give back. I'm going to figure it out. I don't know. It's pretty expensive for these kids to go to barber school. Right now, it's like 20 grand per kid. So maybe I can start a school and reduce that price or something. I don't know. But That's coming in the future.
Nice. So what would you wish you can offer to these kids in, distress situations for their life?
That's a great question. I wish I could give kids peace, man. Peace. Peace of mind. There's so much stuff going on right now, until it's crazy. And a lot of kids, peace of mind is what I would love to give them. Yeah. I think some people, we were speaking about you and what is that like when you get into a trance and stuff. So I think the kids need some peace right now, bro. Peace of mind.
So would you say that when you were teaching art, that was like the first time when you really had a direct impact into these teenagers' life? And did that sort of spark a fire inside of you?
Yeah, that was some fire because I was so creative at the time. I was with these kids, and you gotta be your best. You gotta, first of all, you gotta draw to impress. Because these kids middle of East Oakland, they be like, oh, that's whack. Like you show something, you bring out something, and they like, man, my cousin's better than that. So yeah, they got my juices going, that creativeness, and then like I wanted to show and prove like how I can give this to somebody, how I can teach these kids, as long as they wanted to, how I can bring that out of them, show them what I can show them, and make them great artists. So yeah, that was some great times, and it set me up for barbering. Set me right up wing for barbering. Like I was already creative. I just needed now a license because I was cutting people's hair already.
Mm-hmm.
Not even really charging. Some people I would charge if it was like a hardball fade. And I was messing up some because I didn't have the proper, techniques and stuff. But I was still cutting hair. And I would charge for, like I said, hardball fades or something like that. Because it would take me an hour and a half to cut somebody's hair. So yeah, the drawing set me right up, man, for entrepreneuring, owning my own barbershop. Yeah.
Want to ask you for some advice. For those people
Yes, sir.
who are looking for who had a tough childhood and are trying to live a more, I don't know, I guess a purposeful life, what sort of advice would you give them, or steps would they take?
Best way is just you definitely be yourself. Definitely be yourself. Grow into it. That's the beauty of it. At one point, you could be, uh, working at a supermarket, and within any time, it'd be, months or a couple years, you'll be owning whatever you want to own. Grow into yourself, and do not. It's easier said than done, of course, but please do not let these people try to change you into not being something that you're not. You're only going to do your best when you're you. That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the best advice I could give anybody, man. Do exactly you. Do exactly you. Because that's when you're going to be your best.
And for you, that was kind of leaning towards your creative side and
It was.
going towards your passion into barbering.
Yeah. Because at one point, like growing up, my mom wanted me to have an office job and things of that nature. And I just didn't have the fortitude to do it. Like I couldn't be locked up behind the desk and typing, and I'm not that type of person who likes to just write that much, even. So to be honest, so I had to find something that I know I could do, and that was whatever it was at the time. It was that, and then I just grew into a business owner and things of that nature. Everybody can do it. It's the time, and then being able to find yourself. I want people to find themselves faster, and don't let people try to like dictate who they think you should be. You know.
Thank you for sharing that. Um,
You're welcome.
so I think now is a good time to go into our lightning round where I'm going to ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions and you can answer with just one word or a sentence. So, what's one thing you like to do to relax?
I like to draw.
Oh, nice. What's one thing you like to do for fun?
I like to chill with family. I like to throw little events. I'm not a big event thrower yet, but I like to chill with family. I like to have family in there. I like to cook. I like to I like to what do I like to do? I like to have family there.
Nice. What's one habit you are working on?
Doing something the moment it needs to be done.
Mm,
That's what I need to work on. Being much more on top of things. Just as the more efficient that I am, the better things become. You know,
mm.
never what's the word?
Procrastinate? Don't procrastinate?
Procrastinating. Yeah, that's the word.
Okay.
Procrastinating. Yeah.
And what's one habit you would like to have?
One habit I would like to have, working out.
Mm,
That's a habit I would love to get back into. Working out is a habit I would love to have.
mhm. If you are not doing what you are doing today, what would you be doing?
Wing, I'd be a chef.
Oh.
In all honesty, it was either barbering or chef.
What is your ideal life like?
My ideal life is, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of what it is now. I would have less concern if my children were like, they're doing well. One is, completing college. The other one is living a grown-up life. But my concern is them. So I like the way life is, but I just want it to be easier for my children. You
Mm,
know,
got it. Yeah. And how do you define purpose?
wow. How do I define purpose? That's a great question there. That's a good question. Purpose is definitely purpose is what reasoning. Another word for purpose is reasoning or reason. And definitely my reason is definitely, or my purpose definitely is to take care, of my family, my children, my wife, my mom, those around me, my friends, and I'm also have another commitment. That's to take care of my community and not to be a greedy man and be so much focused on me, mine, you know, um, to help out my brothers. When I say brothers, I mean everybody, mankind. And that's it. Yeah,
Lastly, what request would you like our listeners to do?
it's a couple of requests. Always be yourself. Again, I'm gonna throw that in there. Be you, be you, be you. Be healthy, be you. Go for it, man. Go for what you want, definitely, because it's yours and it's so close to you. Trust me. If you want whatever it is, go for it. It's so close. You'll have pitfalls and peaks and valleys, ups and downs. And that's the beautiful part of it, like when you're trying to build out a building and something doesn't go your way, and you're like, dang, and then you work a little bit harder and then it comes about, like if you're doing barbershop or anything, whatever it is, the peaks and the valleys is a part of it, and it's a beautiful part of it. Love it, do it, chase it, go get it, go get it.
Great request. Thank you for putting that out there. And I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you for taking the time to speak with us. It was a pleasure
Wing,
chatting with you.
brother, it's a pleasure talking to you. You made this really easy. You know, I hope that you can get some understanding out of what I was saying, because I'm one of those people that I don't talk well, I talk a lot. So, man, this was great. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I love hearing your story every time I go see you at the barbershop. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
The key takeaway from this episode is that you are ultimately in charge of your life's destiny. You are not bound to the cards you were dealt with. Your journey might be more rough, but as Nas has shown, difficult journeys can end up being what fuels your life's purpose. Also, as long as you stay true to yourself and to your deep passion, your purpose will stay ignited. I hope this interview with Nas has inspired you so you too can ignite and reach your own purpose. If you would like to hear more and support this podcast, please subscribe, tell your friends about it, rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and also please follow A Work in Purpose on Instagram and join our Facebook group. You have my greatest gratitude for listening. May your present moment, now and forever, be filled with light and love. Until next time, this is Wing, and you are listening to A Work in Purpose.